What is going on, guys? It is Cabal Culture Smasher here. Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we are going to talk about, sadly, the most beloved franchise in the history of entertainment that has been so badly destroyed, as we all know, Star Wars. Today is a unique day because right now in Star Wars history, we are seeing the culmination of the difference between George Lucas's vision for the entertainment industry and Disney's vision. Specifically, you have Revenge of the Sith having just been re-released for its 20th anniversary this past weekend. It has already made $25.5 million domestically. Compare that to something like Snow White, which has only grossed $85 million domestically in 5 weeks and only made a total of $200 million. So Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, a 20-year-old film, has grossed a quarter domestically of what Snow White made in its entire 5-week box office run. That is absolutely terrible numbers because that's a Disney film competing with another Disney film, right? That's Revenge of the Sith, a previously 20th Century Fox Lucasfilm IP, now owned by Disney, competing with an original Disney IP, and they cannot get that off the ground to save their lives. But even worse is that virtually nobody is watching Andor right now because that show is failing to chart pretty much everywhere. It's not really making much of a groundbreaking impact, and season 1 was kind of the same thing. It did moderately fine, I suppose. It actually grew in viewership at the end of the season 1. But the problem is, people are so burnt out on what Disney has done, how they've so badly bastardized and destroyed and just mutilated Star Wars, that nobody's really tuning in to watch their own stuff anymore they're making for this franchise. Because right now, you have some new controversies, right? I'm sure you guys are all aware, it's been blowing up all over the internet the last week, the infamous Grapes of Wrath scene in Andor Season 2. You know I can't say that word here on YouTube without getting censored, so I'm just going to call it the Grapes of Wrath, alright? I'm going to be honest with you guys right now. I have not watched a single episode of any Andor show. I did like Rogue One. Actually, it's my most favorite of anything that Disney made in their Star Wars IP that they've owned thus far. But I didn't really care to watch Andor. Had it come out, like maybe right after Rogue One, that would have been cool. It's just that by the time the Andor Season 1 came around, they'd already destroyed the goodwill of Star Wars. Because I did not even watch Kenobi. My favorite trilogy, the prequel trilogy. I love Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I love Anakin Skywalker. And when they made Kenobi, I'm like, I'm out. I'm not even going to watch this. Because at that point, I was so over what Disney had done. Gina Carano's firing was the last straw, but that's besides the point. Andor, I'm glad to hear that people actually enjoyed what they saw. And then this happened. And I'm going to say one thing right now. The actual scene where this alleged assault takes place, it's barely what they say it is. What sent it over the edge was that she actually drops the line, "He tried to grapes of wrath me." Why is that in Star Wars? That line does not need to be in Star Wars. Now, before anybody tries to call me out, yes, I'm aware the Star Wars universe is pretty messed up, right? We have stuff like the genocide of entire civilizations. We got dudes getting roasted alive. We got children being enslaved. We got women being flogged. We have women being implied to be sexual slaves for Jabba the Hutt, right? We got people hanging on walls like decorations. There's kids getting killed. There's a lot of messed up stuff in the Star Wars universe. But however, actually taking it to the level of saying he tried to grapes of wrath me, that's kind of on a different level of its own, right? I actually didn't really care too much about the scene itself. Like I said, I haven't even watched Andor, but I watched the scene to, get an understanding before I made this video. The actual scene is rather tame. It's not even really that out of brand for Disney to make stuff like that, right? Because you literally have in Aladdin, a kid's movie, you literally have Jafar basically holding this teenage Jasmine as like his concubine. It's kind of implied. It's pretty obvious, right? And that's a kid's movie. Specifically, that is a children's film, right? This is Star Wars, and Andor was, implied to be made for more adult audiences, but still, there is a line of which Star Wars can and cannot cross, and I personally just believe that dropping that hard R That just takes it way too far. If they just showed the scene where he tried to kiss her and she smacked him, it really would not have mattered. It really wouldn't have been like all that bad. Nobody really would have cared because, like I said, we've literally seen Anakin, take out some younglings, right? But dropping that hard R, that's different. The R word. What if a kid watches that, they hear that word, and then they go asking their parents, "Hey, what is that R word?" You know how uncomfortable that is? But see, I think that the reason why everybody's so upset about this is because it's just simply a demonstration of a larger problem. The larger problem being that Star Wars has zero identity. It doesn't know what it is anymore. Because without George Lucas there, it has no guidance, no vision, no connection to anything going on. It has no idea what it even wants to be anymore. Why is the line he tried to Grapes of Wrath me taking place in the same universe as They Fly Now? Like, you see how disconnected it is? Oh, and Skeleton Crew. How can anybody forget about Skeleton Crew? The most kiddish of kiddish Star Wars shows that possibly exists, right? How can these two universes exist simultaneously? They cannot. Either you make a brand that is dark and gritty, or you make a brand that has violence to it, but can connect to children, right? Which is what George Lucas basically did in Star Wars. George Lucas, he made stories that, even though he says they're for kids, he made it so that way it could appeal to a mass audience, both adults and children alike. And those are supposed to be the best stories, that even if they're geared towards kids, they can really appeal to adults. But by having that line in there, in Andor, it just alienates so much of the potential audience. Nobody wants to give Star Wars a shot at anything anymore because of how Disney has bastardized and destroyed their IP. Because why should they give it a chance? Why should they care and give them the benefit of the doubt? They shouldn't. But yeah, Disney, they never fail to surprise me when it comes to how much can they destroy and just basically desecrate the corpse of Star Wars even more, right? Star Wars was an event. Man, I fell in love with Star Wars from watching Revenge of the Sith. And so I'm really happy to see that the 20th anniversary is doing as well as it has. Honestly, Revenge of the Sith is I think my favorite Star Wars film. So when I saw the sequel trilogy, I'm like, yes, here we go. I remember the hype. I remember how excited everyone was to see new Star Wars. And I miss those days. I really, really miss those days. Before Hollywood had totally destroyed entertainment as we know it. Because now it's just a little shell of what it once was, and that makes me sad. But anyway, guys, that was the video. Let me know of your thoughts on that scene on Andor, and let me know, are you guys excited? Did any of you watch the Revenge of the Sith re-release? I own the film, and I've seen it so many times, I didn't really feel a need to go watch it again, but, I'm glad people are going to see it, and I'm glad it's doing so well. That really makes me happy that some people are still excited to watch old Star Wars, and that shows that George Lucas' Star Wars will never die. People still yearn for it, and unfortunately, we'll never get anything equivalent to that in the current age. But if you guys like this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.